Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Murder, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of Poirot, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, or Jonathan Creek. Today, I'm looking at Murder, She Wrote, Murder, She Spoke. Try saying that 10 times fast. Or as I like to call it, that time Jessica played Murder in the Dark. We begin the episode with So Much Country.
Standing on the edge of nowhere, waiting for a train.
Yeah, you go, girl. Not sure about the Christmas jumper, though. Meanwhile, Jessica is recording in the brownest studio and someone is late. Back to country music, and a car rocks up with Greg arriving before walking into the music stand as he is blind. This smile flirts with this hairstyle, even though he's married, and they talk shop before Stoney confronts Randy over possibly leaking his music early. But Randy threatens him with his contract and blames Al before moving on to Jessica's recording. Turns out Randy is canning the murder books on tape for the blind idea, and Margaret jump scares her husband by checking up on him, but makes out with him anyway. A lot. Jessica makes a fumble. Easy on this woman's neck! And Greg slips out as Stoney and his band start up again, and Al calls Randy so he can listen. The power goes out, which apparently happens a lot, and this cowboy rocks up in time for the lights to come back on. But over the phone, Randy calls for help, and he says someone stabbed him in the dark. As he's taken away, he says he was on the phone with Al. And the detective says it had to be one of them, seeing as the door was locked until Cowboy Carl came in, and patronizes Jessica. She will end you. He continues to be a sexist asshat. This face says it all. And Greg says he heard someone run by him and drop something. Please focus on this stuff now. And then Jessica shoves some evidence in his hand and tells him to get to work.
Leave it to a woman to find nail polish.
The phone rings, so Assface answers to find out Randy has died. And after Jessica sasses him, they find the knife behind a vending machine. And then, on a jog with Greg, Jessica is impressed with how he's adjusted and can find his way around. Cowboy Carl calls saying he's canned Jessica's recording, so they go to see him, and he threatens Greg's job. And to make matters worse, the detective has a warrant, so Nancy rushes off to hide evidence that the murder weapon came from their house, and thinks someone is trying to frame Greg. The detective doesn't think so though, and says Greg was next to the power switch when the lights went out.
Who more capable of operating in the dark than a blind man?
Oh, for God's sakes.
And he has a motive because he not only had an argument with him, but Randy caused Greg's blindness. He's taken in for questioning and he has a little domestic with Nancy.
You know what it's like to wake up every morning and open these eyes? Of course I hate it. And I hate him. But hating isn't going to get me anywhere. Isn't that right, Jessica?
And it seems like Nancy thinks he's guilty. Jessica surmises the recent blackouts were practice for the murder, and as well as being a sexist, patronizing douchebag, the detective and his nightscope also hunts deer. And because the blood on the murder weapon matches the victim, obviously, that apparently solves the case. So Greg's going to be arrested, and Assface throws Jessica out. She's not impressed. Jessica returns to the studio, as does Stoney, Sally and Al, who Jessica questions about the phone call. But he's of little help, so she goes to see Earl, who says the lights only go out when Stoney and his band are performing, and says the singer had a beef with the victim. Jessica talks to Sally Ann next, who hates her uncle and has interesting nail polish, but doesn't like the implication of her getting from the dark bathroom to the crime scene faster than anyone else. What's this weird cat-shaped hole for? Jessica dicks around in Randy's office when Margaret and Carl argue over who owns the studio now, and she has interesting nail polish too, which Jessica asks about before Stoney threatens Carl for messing around with Sally Ann. Oof, there are some fashion choices on display here, and Jessica hangs around to watch all the drama. Greg's made bail, and Jessica asks him how someone could have run past him in the dark, and they speculate over motives and suspects before Greg plays her tape as the phone rings, which confuses Detective Douchebag, and that actually solves the case. Earl leaves Al in the studio as the lights go out again, and Greg has a go at him for trying to frame him, before Al turns the lights back on with a hidden switch. Who was that? And Jessica accuses him of the murder. Turns out his bike helmet had a filter to allow him to see in the dark, and his side of the phone call was pre-recorded, allowing him to kill Randy with a stolen knife, stash it behind the vending machine, and get back to his position to turn the lights back on. With the right person arrested this time, the detective sort of apologizes to Jessica. Okay, this one is clever. I honestly thought the killer was Greg too, but then of course he was arrested, and I was like, I guess not. The clues were all laid out throughout the episode so you could work it out for yourselves and not be, pun intended, left in the dark like you are in other episodes. There were plenty of viable suspects, so it wasn't super obvious it was Al, but also there were lots of bits and pieces that seemingly led nowhere, like Sally Ann maybe hooking up with Carl, Randy maybe cheating on his wife, the nail polish thing, and Greg being unnecessarily aggro at times. And of course, we need to talk about the douchey detective, who may have been true to life at the time, but man was he irritating and hard to watch. Jessica has come across resistance before, but this guy took it to a whole other level that grated on my nerves. I like this one otherwise, what with it being a closed circle mystery, but I do have one point that really confuses me. So much so that I watched the episode again just to make sure I hadn't missed something. But what was the motive? I know Al was the one bootlegging Stoney Carmichael's music, but Randy didn't confront him about it until the night of the murder, and yet he'd been practicing for it for the past month. So why did he kill him? It's not at all clear. They spend more time on how and why he tried to frame Greg than actually explaining why Al wanted Randy dead in the first place, which is a shame. I really want to know. We have one victim, Randy Whitworth, who was stabbed and later died of his injuries by our killer, Al Parker, who took the idea of murder in the dark just a little too far. So there you have it. That was Murder She Spoke. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want more videos like this one. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and keep an eye out for clues.